Alright, hi everybody, this is Sean, and I'm doing an interview under Compete for the Street on Facebook, and I have with me Josh Robinson. Josh is the drop-in director for Sox Place here in Denver, Colorado. So we're going to do a little interview. This is actually the first time he's doing something like this, but I'm going to ask Josh a few questions, but along the way I'm going to give Josh a chance to give you guys an understanding of what Sox Place is and what it does. So with that, Josh, could you give me a brief story about what Sox Place is?
Yeah, so Sox Place was started by my dad, Doyle. We've had a building since 2002. He was on the streets for about 3 years before that. He saw street kids hanging out on the corner, and he decided that he wanted to do outreach to them. So he started bringing food and bottles of water, granola bar sandwiches, things like that. And the kids wouldn't talk to him for a long time. And after he finally gained their trust enough, he asked them what sorts of things that they could really use. And they told him that clean socks would be great. So he started filling a duffel bag with socks that he bought at Sam's Club and coming down the streets and handing out socks. And he did that for about 3 years, and he really formed a good relationship with the kids and got in really good with them. And they started calling him Socks. We were fortunate enough to get a donation to open a physical address, open a building. So in 2002, we opened Sox Place, which is a daytime drop-in center for homeless and at-risk youth, otherwise known as street kids. And we are a safe place, a gathering place where the kids can come 5 days a week. We have a hot meal every day. They serve themselves. We don't serve them like a soup kitchen would. They come in, they get their food, they make themselves at home. We have computers where they can surf the internet, where they can fill out job applications or school applications. We have a TV and couches where they can take a nap, they can put on a movie, play pool. All in all, it's a safe place for these kids to come. And in this environment, we spend time with them, we form relationships, gain their trust, and we do mentoring with them. Out of that has grown things like the GED tutoring program, which Sean has really taken on. And we give out clothing and hygiene products. We give out food boxes. We refer the kids to other resources such as rehabs and housing and food stamps and things like that. So all in all, that's a kind of a quick synopsis in a nutshell. We're a safe place for street kids.
One thing that I have noticed is that the street community, particularly the community of street kids, is fairly diverse. There's different types, and they tend to have kind of like communities of their own. So, Josh, what kind of kids do you see here of all the different groups?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot. In the beginning, we saw two major types of kids. We had the gutter punks and the crusties. And the gutter punks were your old school punk rock, big mohawks, tattoos all over the place. They lived outside, so they're called gutter punks, and they were really anti-establishment. They were really violent. They drank a lot, did a lot of drugs. And then you had the crusty kids, which are kind of hobos, youth age hobos. They ride freight trains across the country and they travel, kind of like old hippies. And those were, for the most part, the kids that we saw back then. Since then, it's changed. We still have some of those kids. Now we have kids from the hip hop community, kids that are involved in graffiti and breakdancing. We have kids that are skaters. They do skateboarding. We have kids that are into the rave scene, all different types of music. We have kids from good homes that are just kind of rebelling and seeing what the streets are like. And the most part of our kids are coming from abusive and neglectful homes. But all different ages. Most of them fall between 12 and 25. But we see infants to people up into their 30s, which belong to this subculture. And all different ages, all different races, and styles and types of kids. So we see quite a few different types of kids now. We were pretty limited in the beginning.
So you mentioned the kind of age ranges, and you mentioned like 25 and going up to 33. Some people would say, well, you know, technically I didn't consider myself a kid after the age of 18, or maybe some people that were liberated or emancipated earlier might say, well, you're not technically a kid after the age of 17. So why the long range? Why would we still consider them kids in the 30s?
Yeah, well, they should be some of my friends that I graduated high school with. They're idiots kids, but no, I love those guys. But you know, the street kids, that's a name that they've kind of given themselves.
Yeah.
On one hand, but also the addictions that they're dealing with, the mental health issues, the abusive situations that they're coming out of have stunted them socially and emotionally. So even the kids that are up into their 30s have the social skills and the coping skills of an adolescent. You know, so we're talking about a group of kids that are not too far from, you know, the Lord of the Flies, and they've kind of raised each other out on the streets. So, I mean, the term kid is kind of a misnomer, but it's, you know, it's just kind of a general term that encompasses this particular subculture. But it's their actions and their behavior are very much like kids. Not all of them. Some of them are really mature, really intelligent. But yeah, for the core of the group that we reach out to could easily be referred to as kids or youth. You know, but we do have some of those that are kind of outliers, that are babies or, you know, old.
Yeah, or grandpa.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess with that, the next question is why socks? I mean, you know, homelessness in America is a big problem, definitely. Now, as to why people think it's a problem or not a problem is still up for debate. There are still a lot of people, unfortunately, in America that think that the only reason why homelessness exists is because people are lazy.
Yeah.
They neglect things like mental health, which is a huge problem.
Sure.
And obviously addiction. But specifically within the segment of children, which most people don't even think about when they think about homeless. They think about older people that have been on the streets for a long time, or maybe they just got on the streets because of some financial hard time. But there are a lot of homeless children. But why socks? Why not take them down to Denver Rescue or one of these other facilities and projects that specialize for homelessness?
Yeah, you know, and we're big believers in not duplicating services. So when Dad first started, there wasn't a daytime drop-in center where these kids could go and fit in. That group of kids that Dad met down here 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, had the ability to go to the rescue mission to get a sandwich, or to go to St. Francis, go to some of these different places. They didn't do it. There's a lot of contention between the street kids, which may or may not be kid age, and the adult homeless population. They don't intermingle. So the kids wouldn't go down to an adult homeless facility because they didn't want to intermingle. Also, they didn't want to get preached at in order to get food. They weren't willing to sit through a Bible study or sit through a sermon in order to get some food. And so they would routinely eat out of trash cans, beg for leftovers, things like that. It was common. They would rather do that than go to some of these other places. And some of the other youth organizations that were around were really strictly limited by age. And if you were over 21, a lot of times you couldn't get a service at a youth organization. You had to go to an adult organization, which they didn't want to go to. And if you're under 18, then a lot of times they would run your name. And if you had any warrants or if you were runaway, then you were flagged. And not surprisingly, a large percentage of those kids were runaways and had warrants.
Unfortunately.
So we met up with a group of kids that were not being served, not from a lack of effort by other people. They just hadn't found their niche. And so we really focused, or I should say Dad really focused in on meeting the needs for this niche group, which has grown and expanded and diversified a little bit. But we really try to cater to this group of kids that either weren't allowed to go somewhere else or just chose not to.
And safety is, I guess, a huge concern in that. Especially, you can imagine, a 16-year-old girl, if she wants to go to Denver Rescue. The problem is that some of those guys that are over there may have just come out of prison. Some of them, unfortunately, might have a history of violence or sexual assault.
Yeah.
So it's just not safe.
Right. The streets are really predatory, especially young boys and girls. You know, the sex trade and human trafficking is, you know, it's pervasive. You know, these kids will sell themselves for money, for drugs, or just for a place to sleep. There's a term called gutter mattress, which is going around. And gutter mattresses are usually female, but can be male, people that trade their bodies for a place to sleep. So that's the unfortunate reality of it, and that's why the street kid subculture has really, you know, kind of closed ranks around itself and has really become a kind of a family unit of itself. They look out for each other.
Self-protection,
Yeah.